She thought it was just another car she could tow. An HOA Karen cut the lock and tried to take a black man's Jeep. But what she didn't know, that Jeep didn't just belong to him, it belonged to a police task force. And the moment she found out, her world came crashing down. For Darnell Lewis, his Jeep wasn't just a vehicle. It was a symbol of years of hard work and discipline. Every dent, every scratch told a story. And inside the glove box sat documents and equipment no ordinary neighbor could ever understand. Because Darnell wasn't just a Jeep owner, he was a member of a federal police task force. By day, he blended in like anyone else in the quiet neighborhood. But his Jeep was more than transportation. It was part of his job, a vehicle sometimes used for undercover surveillance, equipped with hidden gear. To anyone looking, it just looked rugged and beat up. But to Darnell, it was untouchable. The HOA, however, didn't see the Jeep that way. To them, it wasn't a badge of honor. It was an eyesore, a violation of their pristine, picture-perfect streets. Letters started appearing in Darnell's mailbox, fines stacked up. "Remove the vehicle," they demanded. Darnell explained calmly. The Jeep was his, it was registered, and it wasn't going anywhere. But in every meeting, one voice grew, louder than the rest: Karen, the self-appointed enforcer of the HOA rules. She hated the Jeep, hated the way it looked, hated that Darnell wouldn't bow to her demands. To her, the Jeep was a challenge to her power, and she wasn't about to lose. It was a hot Saturday afternoon when Karen decided she'd had enough. Marching to the lot where Darnell kept his Jeep chained, she carried bolt cutters in her hands and arrogance in her heart. Neighbors watched as she clipped the heavy lock, smirking as if she'd won some great battle. "This thing's gone today," she declared. She had already arranged for a tow truck, telling the driver it was an abandoned vehicle. The Jeep's wheels were chained, the doors locked, but none of that mattered to Karen. She believed her HOA power was above the law itself. What she didn't realize was that by cutting that lock, she hadn't just trespassed, she had tampered with federal property. Darnell returned from running errands just in time to see the tow truck backing up to his Jeep. At first he thought it was a mistake. Then he saw Karen standing proudly with the broken lock in her hand. Rage boiled inside him, but years of training kept his voice steady. "What do you think you're doing?" he asked firmly. Karen scoffed. "Getting rid of this junk. It's an eyesore. You've been warned." Darnell shook his head. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Before Karen could respond, Darnell reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and flipped it open. Inside gleamed a federal badge. The tow truck driver froze mid-step. Neighbors gasped. And Karen's smug smile faltered for the first time. "This Jeep," Darnell said, his voice calm but cutting, "is not just mine. It's part of a federal police task force. By cutting that lock, you tampered with official equipment." The color drained from Karen's face. She tried to laugh it off, muttering, "You're bluffing." But she wasn't laughing when Darnell dialed a number on his phone, and within minutes, 2 police cruisers rolled into the neighborhood. Officers stepped out, and Darnell calmly explained the situation: the broken lock, the attempted tow, the harassment. He showed them his credentials. The officers' expressions hardened as they turned to Karen. "Ma'am," one officer said, "do you understand what you've done? This isn't a simple HOA violation. This is destruction of property and interference with federal law enforcement." Karen stammered, pointing fingers, blaming Darnell, blaming the HOA, blaming anyone but herself. But the evidence was undeniable. The broken lock in her hand, the tow truck driver's testimony, and half the neighborhood who had witnessed it all. She was cited on the spot, facing charges that went far beyond her precious HOA rules. Word spread quickly. The same neighbors who once backed Karen began whispering about her downfall. Parents who once nodded politely at her now crossed the street to avoid her. The HOA board, embarrassed and panicked, tried to distance themselves, claiming they had never authorized her actions. But the damage was done. Karen wasn't just humiliated, she was legally trapped. Court dates loomed, fines piled up, and the HOA had to face the uncomfortable truth. Their obsession with control had backfired in the most spectacular way possible. Through it all, Darnell remained calm. He didn't seek revenge. He didn't yell or gloat. He simply repaired his lock, parked his Jeep back in its place, and carried on with his life. But from that day forward, no one dared complain about it again. The Jeep stood as a silent monument in the neighborhood, not just a vehicle, but a reminder that arrogance has consequences, that rules don't trump justice, and that sometimes the person you underestimate the most carries the most powerful badge of all. This story isn't just about a Jeep or a lock or even one arrogant HOA Karen. It's about respect, about the danger of letting prejudice and pride blind you to the truth. Karen thought she was unstoppable, but in trying to take away what wasn't hers, she lost everything that mattered to her. As for Darnell, he never needed to prove himself. But on that day, when he showed his badge, he reminded everyone watching that real authority doesn't come from fear, it comes from honor. So the next time someone tries to cut you down, remember this: sometimes the lock they break becomes the trap that breaks them.